Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to have a run through my solar setup at home, and we're going to run through some calculations to see whether it's viable for me to get a battery, whether it's cost effective. Okay, so let's jump straight into it. So on the screen you can see, and you have to forgive my rather crude drawing of a house, but this is my house with its solar setup. So my house is, the front of the house is on the left hand side here. So my house faces kind of southwest, which means that, for those of you that don't know, the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. But because we're in the northern hemisphere in the UK, then the sun passes us on the south side. So the sun rises at the back of my house, passes kind of over the top, and then sets at the front. So this is why we have what I would call a split array. So some panels on the front, some panels on the back. So yeah, we have six 330 watt panels and a 3.6 kilowatt hour inverter. So the panels actually add up to, I think it's nearly 4 kilowatts, but the 3.6 is the output of the inverter. I think it can take up to 4.1 kilowatts maybe input, and I think the reason is because there's some loss of efficiency when it converts it from DC to AC, that you can only get sort of 3.6 out of it. Yeah, so currently we have just the solar, just the inverter. So when we are generating solar and we are generating enough, we power our house directly off of solar. And when we are generating more than we can use, then we send some back to the grid. When we are generating or using more than what the solar is generating, then we pull some from solar, some from the grid. Now what we are looking at is possibly bringing a battery into the mix, so that when we are generating more than what we are using, we can then store it in the battery and then use that later, rather than pulling from the grid when the sun's gone down. So one of the reasons we're looking at this is we are on the feed-in tariff. So what we get paid for what we generate, kind of. Our feed-in tariff is based off what we generate. So we get paid for 50% of what we generate, regardless of what we send back to the grid. So it doesn't make sense for us to send any back to the grid. In effect, what we're sending back to the grid is kind of wasted money at the moment. So we can now stick a battery in, store that extra capacity in the battery. We'll still get our feed and tariff payment, and then we can use the extra energy from the battery. So we'll be looking at how much we are sending back to the grid over the last year and what that equates to in money costs, and then also what else we can get from the battery if we were to get one. Okay, so this is this is the front of my house, and here we have the 6 panels. This picture was taken yesterday. Wasn't a great solar day yesterday. Yeah, and 6 on the back. So you can see we've got ample room on the back. We are considering maybe getting some more panels as well. I think maybe another 4 on the back and maybe 2 on the front. And then we would have to look at whether we have whether we just need to upgrade this inverter, or whether we actually need to get another one alongside it for that. So we're thinking long term here. We're thinking maybe electric car, bigger battery, just try and get some more savings out of it. So let's jump over to the costs then. So yeah, kind of looks scary, but we'll walk through it. So this is taken from the previous year, so from May last year up until April this year. So this is the amount of solar that we generated over that year. So this was taken from my feed-in tariff calculations. So every few months we get asked to send a reading from our solar meter, and then they work out what they're going to pay us on our feed-in tariffs based off that. So yeah, basically what I did is I took the amount that I'd sent them over that 3 month period and just divided it by 3. So hence why there's 3 exact values for the months of July, August, September, for instance. So that's the total amount we generated. What we used of that and what we sent back to the grid are these two numbers here. So this wasn't an exact figure. We do have the ability to pull data from our solar unit. We have a data logger there. However, from the past 12 months, I think only 3 months I was able to get the data for some reason. I don't know why that is. But what I did do is I looked at a couple of them months and I saw that we were kind of using 2/3 of what we were generating and sending a third back. So I just decided to work out the whole year based upon the 2/3, 1/3 ratio. So yeah, we can see how much solar we've used. And then basically what I did is I multiplied that by our current electricity rate to give us the savings that we were making by using that energy instead of buying it from the grid. Yeah, and as mentioned here, the exported is basically just 1/3 of what we generated. So that's it in kilowatt hours. And then, yeah, this is kind of what we're wasting at the moment. So this is what we're sending back to the grid. And we would get our feed-in tariff payment anyway. So yeah, it's pretty much wasting money. So it's £273 a year there. That we could be using ourselves. Electric from the grid. This was pretty straightforward. I just took this off my electric bills. The future use. So this is based off what we drew from the grid last year minus what we would be using if we had a battery, and that would give us the amount that we would need to draw off the grid if we had that battery in place. And then this is the cost. So this is obviously what our future use would be multiplied what our current electricity rate is. If we were to stay on our current tariff. What this column is here, the future cost, we are looking at going to the Octopus Go tariff. So this is similar to an Economy 7, where during the day the electricity cost, I think it's like 35p per kilowatt, but during the night it's actually 7.5p. I think it's between 12:30 at night and 4:30 in the morning. So this is where we could charge our battery up if we were to get one at 7.5p per kilowatt. So basically what we've done there is we've times that 7.5p by the amount that we would be using if we were to have that battery. So a few things that we're interested in. We were interested in how much we were currently saving with our solar in place. So that is this value here. So that's the money, that's the electric that we're using instead of drawing it from the grid, plus our feed-in tariff payment. So currently we're saving £750-ish a year. Obviously that's going to fluctuate depending on weather conditions. And this will only rise with the rising cost of electricity. So I think initially when we took out the solar panels, it was like a 20-year repayment period. That's decreased significantly. It wouldn't surprise me if that's going to half with the future rise that's coming in October. And then these are the ones that we were interested in to see whether it would be viable for us to get a battery or not. So The £273, that's the money that we're currently sending back to the grid, which we would store in the battery itself. So that's a saving there. This is the biggest saving. So this is what we would save if we were to go to the Octopus Go tariff and charge our battery up overnight when it's nice and cheap. So that is the difference between what we would currently be paying for our electric and what we would be paying if we were to charge the battery up overnight and use that for our electric. We then have the difference between the standing charge. The Octopus Go tariff is slightly more expensive. I mean, we're talking pennies. Okay, yeah, so that's the standing charge times the days in the month. Yeah, so you can see it's actually £7 more expensive, but given the saving that we would have if we got the battery and switch tariff, we end up with an overall saving of £900 a year, which is actually more than what we're saving on the solar at the moment. So we've been looking at a number of options for batteries, but I think the one we're going to plumb for is maybe the Give Energy 9.5 kilowatt battery with the inverter. That comes in at £5,000. So we would be looking at a repayment period of, what's that, 6 years? 6 nines, 54, yeah. So seems like a bit of a no-brainer, really. We're definitely going to get a battery. And the good thing about the Give Energy batteries is you can stack them. So we could just add another one to it if we thought it wasn't doing the job. And I think that's maybe one for the future. We might upgrade our solar, we might add another battery, and then start moving things onto electric. So we use gas for our hot water at the moment. We might switch that to an electric immersion heater on a timer. We use gas for our hob. We're thinking about maybe switching that to an induction heater. And we drive petrol cars at the moment, so we are also thinking about maybe in the future going electric. So yeah, an upgrade in the solar, another battery would just manage them costs. Okay, so hopefully this has been informative for you. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there in the same situation that have got solar that are thinking about a battery. Hopefully this has helped you. Yeah, just obviously your calculations are going to be different based upon which way your house faces, how much capacity you've got in your solar, but the general principle is the same. So if you like this, please hit the like button, share, subscribe, and thank you for viewing.